Sexy people, it is Dave. It is Duncan.
It's me.
Back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Devon, riff slingers, Monolith. The band's new album, Lord of the Insect Order, will be released on August 23rd. So, if you remember back in
March
24,
of this year.
Yep.
If you cast your memory back 4 months,
Yeah.
just like something like that.
It's not a big ask. We reviewed an album by a band called Monolith. That album was called Hornet's Nest.
We did, Dave.
However,
Sorry, I just wanted to agree with you. People would be like, did they? And I'm just here to say, like, your hype man.
right, cool,
You know
cool.
what I mean? Yep.
I like
Yes,
it.
we did do that.
I like it. However, you may have remembered me saying my penis was also 15 inches. Where's my fucking hype man? However, you may have remembered me saying...
Hype man for truth, Dave. Not a propagator of lies.
Backing me up, yeah. You let me fall.
Backing you into a corner and saying, stop lying to the audience, right?
Aye. Nobody puts Davey in the corner. You might remember me saying, Monolith are not done for 2024.
You did say that.
Yeah.
I just thought you were joking. Or you knew that they had a tour or something. They're not done in 2024. There's like, it's a fairly ambiguous yet ominous thing to put at the end of it.
So today we have Lord of the Insect Order, which is album 2 of 3 albums coming out in 2024, ladies and gents.
Did know that.
So what do we know about this one? Well,
take everything that Dave says with a pinch of salt. Unless it is from the PR press statement, is it?
Hype man, you just shut your mouth and say yes.
Yes.
Adamant to never repeat themselves, Lord of the Insect Order, the second release of 3 albums penned for 2024, once again sees Monolith veering into a new realm of the metal landscape. This time splitting their sound even further across 2 halves of the record. As Monolith continue to draw on a cinema as an equal influence to music, Lord of the Insect Order draws inspiration from the sci-fi B-movies of old and explores collective human suffering and grief at the hands of caterpillars from space. Utilising tempo as a storytelling tool, the first half of the record takes on a doom approach, whilst the latter leans heavily into traditional deathcore as the central figures morph into moths. So, Hornet's Nest, we reviewed in March. That album leaned more into like a hardcore, blackened kind of hardcore sound. It touches of death metal and crust in there as well. This release, we're going for a blend of doom and deathcore. Which now, it kind of makes a bit more sense because I think it was the final track of Hornet's Nest was like much slower than the rest of the album. And that maybe was like a possible like nod or a little hint to, what they were going to do next, or put out something of a slower kind of tempo on the next release. This album was also a little bit longer, at almost 32 minutes in length. But with that particular blend of styles, I was kind of expecting it would maybe run a touch longer. Doom is never in a hurry, you know what I'm saying?
Who are you on this review? Have you been replaced by an insect?
However, the songs on this are shorter than I expected. The
well, they are releasing 3 albums this year, Dave, so
that's true.
I crammed them in here.
That's true. Longest track's 3 minutes 49. So even though we're at a slower tempo on some of these tracks, they don't tend to drag anything out on this one. And while they've said this album, we're moving into doomier and more deathcore territory, that doesn't mean that's all you're going to get on this one. There are a few other elements in here which were also pretty cool, which I'll expand on in a little minute. So Monolith from Devon, a bunch of talented bastards, Duncan, not going to lie here. The fact, all right, they're putting out 3 albums this year, all sounding different, but also like to deliver we've not heard album 3 yet. It could be absolute garbage, but
I'm not hyping that up. Boo! Boo that man.
Oh, wait and see on that one. Jury's out. The quality of the first 2 releases, quite impressive. Like, although this is venturing into new territory for the band, albeit, the genres aren't miles away from what they've done previously, it doesn't sound like a band like trying to find their feet. Like, this sounds very confident for a band that have decided, like, let's go into doom and deathcore on this next album. I was quite impressed with just the kind of levels of songwriting on this one, with these new styles they're trying. Kicks off with what I would class as like doomcore, I would say. It's kind of deathcore, but it's like on the much slower end of things to begin with. Whereas that's where the kind of band kind of utilised that kind of doom-like tempo and kind of droning, that kind of crushing weight. And when Swarm Awakening kicks in after the intro track, it is just crushingly heavy. Like, this is just like an explosion of slow, ominous riffs, really bleak atmosphere, really kind of dark lead work, and then you've got Luke providing these really like guttural kind of vocals, but also kind of pairing them with a kind of something higher registered as well, to give it a bit of a kind of, there's a thickness to it, feeling of kind of menace in the vocals, but it never really goes into like a predictable, although it's got like deathcore elements, never goes into like a deathcore predictable formula. I almost expected this to come out with like customary kind of like build-ups into like breakdowns or like halftime shifts, but they do keep the first half of the album in a more kind of like doom-like formula, where it just kind of like continues to steamroll. Like, it's got like a constant like oppressiveness in the first half of the album. Never really ventures out with that doom tempo. Not once did this get into a gallop within those first six tracks. It sticks to like primarily slow to teetering on like mid-tempo. But I quite like that. It's got a really kind of like real kind of groove to the first part of the album. And although it's like set to a fairly confined kind of pace, they do mix it up in a different way. When track 4 kicks in, which is the title track, they take things in like the complete opposite direction, with like clean, dreamy kind of melodies. It sounds more uplifting, even more like atmospheric. There's bits of synths, almost like a kind of like post-rock kind of type lead work in there as well. I thought that was killer. I really liked that track. Almost 3 minutes in length, and actually it works as almost like a kind of build-up into what's to come on the next track, which is Planetary Hardening, which is like a full-blown kind of extension of that, even bigger, heavy guitars this time, and full vocals as well. That then blends perfectly into track 6, Hollow Metabolism.
Oh, well done.
Which feels like, that kind of felt like a turning point in the album. It's like kind of the bridging interlude between part 1 and part 2 of the album. Part 2 is where things get a little bit more intensified, Duncan.
PC.
Yep. From Eclosion Rise of the Imago Predator. Imago. Things are much quicker in pace. We've got some blast beats kicking in. We've got some triple picking. We've got something that's a bit more rhythmically adventurous. And this is where the deathcore side of things makes more of an appearance, I'd say, on the second half.
Takes the wheel, Dave.
It does. Deathcore Take the Wheel, that song by Carrie Underwood. This part of the album has the breakdowns. It has the stank face riffs, Duncan. It has the switch-ups galore. The fretwork, much more technical. But what I really enjoyed was they kept that kind of looming, like, ominous atmosphere that's on the first half of the album, and they just continued that right through into the second part of the album. So it almost acts like a kind of like a coating or a glue that gives the album a kind of feeling of continuity or cohesion overall. And it's a satisfying listen. There's some really killer moments on that second half of the album. I really liked Parasitic Accession. Riffs are really interesting, quite progressive in places, but that middle section where it kind of breaks down with there's like kind of eerie lead work, it reminded me of a French band. I used to listen to this band like over a decade ago. They were called As They Burn. They had an album called Aeon's War, which I absolutely loved. And although like this is much heavier, there was some similar kind of characteristics about it. The end of Parasitic Accession, where it gets much more melodic, was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. It's got almost like a kind of a touch of like post-hardcore about it. The way they use the kind of reverb on the vocals and the way they transition that into Lanomia Pestilence, which shows off this more like kind of black metal side in the riffs and the rhythm, which was awesome. Could be, I think it's probably my favourite kind of pairing of tracks on the album, those two. I loved that they kind of played it straight on that Lanomia Pestilence. There was like no breakdowns, not too much technicality. They just gave us kind of another kind of side of the band, which did, when I heard that, it made me wonder. I was like, okay, is that something they're planning on the next release? Are they going to push that blackened side more on the third album? I'd be down for that if that is the case. The last track on the album gives us a little bit of everything. So we've got the doomy intro, we've got the deathy pummeling, twists and turns, huge atmosphere, and possibly the biggest vocal delivery of the album. It sounds huge. They've probably doubled up vocals to an extent to give them a bit more size, but it absolutely works, and it finishes off that last track on the album with a bang. In terms of quality, I think this is just as good as Hornet's Nest, but I actually found myself wanting to come back to this a little bit more. I found that there's a little bit more, there's more layers to this, and it kind of made it a little bit more interesting for me. There's a bit more to delve into on this one. If Hornet's Nest delivered the frantic intensity of getting shivved in a prison shower, then this album is more like spending a weekend in Guantanamo Bay. And
things that we both have an acquired knowledge of.
I don't.
When did you become Bronson? Honestly, shivved in a shower. What the fuck's going on here?
I don't mean it was torture to listen to, but I mean like it kind of pummels you in a much more prolonged and methodical way.
You've been waterboarded by metal. I get it.
It also works with a different prison shower analogy, to be honest. But if you know, you know. I don't know, by the way. I'm just saying.
Kind of sounds like you do, though.
I've watched enough prison movies to know, Duncan. Yeah.
Skipping this bit. Frame by frame.
I really enjoyed this. It was equal amounts. I was equal amounts impressed as I was excited after Hornet's Nest. But after hearing what they've put together on Lord of the Insect Order and implementing these different styles so effectively, I'm now thinking Monolith, they could be one of the UK's best kept secrets, Duncan. I'm interested to hear what happens on installment 3, for sure. What about yourself? What did you make of album 2 in 2024 from Monolith?
So, like, there is a kind of Venn diagram of diminishing orders, especially in music. Like bands that tend to, we've spoken about double albums before. When bands release double albums, there is a part of me that kind of goes, ugh. Because I'm instantly in a position where I'm like that. I know there is an album's worth of probably great material here, and a lot of stuff that you just couldn't part with. Which a really good producer would be like that. No, it's not making the album. Or a really good record label would be like, not on my watch. But you get the double album because everyone thinks it's a great idea. Yeah. Monolith went a bit a different way. So what they've done is basically they've catered a tone, a theme, and a sound on one album, and followed up with something that is progressing in a different direction. And as a result of that, the band have adjusted their sound accordingly. I mean, to the layman, I'm looking at the internet, if you heard both albums in isolation, I think it probably could be easy to think you were listening to two different bands.
Yeah, for sure.
Not because vocally it's changed, or even because the guitar tone sounds all that different, but the style of playing and the approach to writing on this one does feel like a different approach. Does kind of feel like the band have kind of cleaned the whiteboard off from Hornet and then being like that, right? Insect Order, let's rewrite this out, let's fucking bastard, and like start from scratch. I will say I prefer this one to the previous album, and the reason I prefer this one to the previous album, and you cannot touch on it, is they lean into the doom. The first half of this album was fucking bitchin'. We're gonna get to the back half of the album, but the first half of this album is just full of fucking big old stank personality. I love it because they bring all the weight of doom in their music, but none of the sludge.
Yeah.
So it's still got that kind of very, it's not clean, but it's very produced, very like identifiable guitar tone.
Yeah.
And the clean, kind of what I would class as clean melody notes, like shine through on those elements, but the underlying thing is heavy as fuck, right? And I think they've brought that element brought into the music works really fucking well. And like you say, the kind of the bits where you expect it to be like it's kind of got all the ingredients of like deathcore, but you know the dish at the end is doom. It's really weird to describe, and I think they've kind of mastered the balance perfectly. The back half of the album, and you are right, like we got a clear cut point here, and then the back of this album like kind of leans into a little bit more familiar territory from the band overall. But that works for me because in the concept of the album, and it does feel like a conceptual album, the back of the half of the album probably is going to be more frantic as you know the takeover begins, so to speak. And I love those elements as well. Actually, I don't mind bands that will use a midway point to stretch off and go in a different direction. Interestingly enough, we've already spoken about two bands tonight that have used that very same technique. One I appreciated a lot more because I could get with it, and the other one where I thought the split was too confusing. In the case of this one, it totally makes sense, and the transition works really, really well. Plus, it flexes stuff out. I think the end of the album was where, like you were saying, things get really tantalizing. If I was an insect, my antennas would be twitching. Because I started to think of possibilities of where this could go next. And, I mean, it's maybe the name of the album or the collection of fucking 3 albums should be called Unfurling of the Cosmic Caterpillar. It's such a fucking great name. It really, really, it does make me want to start a 70s like fucking prog doom band just called that, and we all dressed in like bodysuits with arms fucking playing drum like that. It would be so fucking cool. And in between songs I curl up and then unfurl. It'd be amazing. Just an idea. We'll think about it. We'll you know what we'll do? We'll work it out. Okay. But this album ends fucking strong. And the production is so fucking well done. Vocally, I like it. His tone is amazing. And it did kind of make me start to think. I hate bands where I feel like bands are going through an identity crisis. You know, where they're like, what are we? Monolith might be the exception to that. Like, having released 2 albums that feel very different in such a short time frame, but are handled in a level where the proficiency and the knowledge of the styles are doing kind of feels like that's their sound anyway. Just makes me wonder if more bands should do albums. We spoke about it with the Acacia Strain recently, where the Acacia Strain gave you the Acacia Strain album that you kind of expected you were going to get. And guess what? They also gave you another album, which, so not a double, but they gave you another album, and it was just 3 big fucking huge, long, weighty, kind of doomy, sludgy tracks, and it sounded fucking amazing. And, like, you know, game respects game that way. I'm listening to that going, I now have my choice here. I kind of feel the same way now. I kind of feel like some days I will be in a total Hornet mood, and other times I'll want to be part of the Insect Order.
Definitely.
And I kind of love that about this one. The fact of giving us both in the same year is kind of borderline genius. And like you say, if the blackened elements start coming out on the third album, I mean, we could be talking about like an incredible hat trick of albums in the space of a year. I don't know how they have time to do anything. It's almost as if they know the internet's not full of porn. No one's masturbating. They're using that pent-up energy writing songs. But it's fucking great. It's really, 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 really good. And I am... To tie into the kind of B-movie sci-fi theme of this one, if this was, and I think I've used this analogy before, if this was Starship Troopers, I would like to know more. I will say the only negative I have overall in it.
Oh, here we go.
Off here.
Here we go.
I do not like Independence Day. I think Independence Day is fucking horrible faux American propaganda. I seen it, like Dave's never seen all of Independence Day, throw shame at him. But there is a scene where like the Americans have solved how to bring in the spaceships. Spoiler alert for a movie that's almost 30 years old.
Duncan.
30 years old, Dave.
I was going to watch this weekend.
A Big Willie style couldn't have got you through the door to watch it. You're never going to see it now.
Take his name out of your fucking mouth, Duncan.
Whatever happened to him? So the Americans work out how to destroy the actually suicide bomb, which is a whole different. This is pre 9/11. So they can get away. But they literally like they find out how to destroy the aliens, and there is a scene where they're like, put on the wire, let the world know, like, because they're all Americans and they're fucking great, and they all use Morse codes, and they switch to England, and I shit you not, the general that answers this, all he's missing is a monocle. It's like that, by Jove, the Americans have cracked it. And I'm like that, it's fucking 1996! Who is this cunt? Why is he in the Monopoly game? It is like, it's just all the America, fuck yeah. And I can't be bothered with that. The reason I mention Independence Day a lot is the opening track has Bill Pullman's entire monologue of how they're going to reclaim Independence Day from the aliens. And it's the only thing I didn't like. It's the only thing. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say about the same time Starship Troopers came out, Starship Troopers, infinitely better movie than Independence Day. So there you go. That's my controversial statement. Okay. The internet hate will flow. But I'll tell you right now, look over those comments and check out Lord of the Insect Order by Monolith. Dude, this band! I don't even think it's like... How do they talk this now? And if we're charting here, where I'm charting with my scores, which we're about to get to, memory serves I gave the previous album a 4. This one's coming in higher. Does this mean there's only one step to go above the grade I'm giving this, and they have one album left to do, so no pressure, lads. I'm sure it's under control. Get to the grades.
Let's get to the grades, Duncan. Yeah, this is a different beast to the first album. I think they're both...
Dave.
It's a different insect to the first album, Duncan. I think they're both great albums for different reasons. Again, like, it depends on my mood as to which one I will go to listen to. What I would say is I feel like I found more to kind of enjoy on this one, more that makes me want to come back to it. I think there's just a bit more detail, a bit more kind of depth to this one over Hornet's Nest. Hornet's Nest is great as well, though.
It's a fucking great album.
Yeah, I think this is a notch up from the previous album. I'm going to go 4.5 out of 5 on this one. Duncan, what say you?
Twinning's winning, Dave. It's a 4.5 for me. That's what I'm saying. If we chart this, they pull out all the stops. If they give us a wee bit of the black, Dave, there is a chance that there's a 5-star before the end of this year. Yeah, this is fucking great. Like, I could easily spin this when working out, and this would be great. The first half of the album is for the slow weight parts, and then the back half is when you're fucking on the mill. Not actually physically fucking on the treadmill.
Or masturbating, Duncan. It works either way.
I don't know if I have the patience to start slow and then go quick. I think I just want to...
Come on.
If I'm going quick, I have to go slow. Without getting into the intricate details here.
Duncan, I know you've got 32 minutes in you. I know you do. Don't lie.
I've got a couple of 32 minutes in me.
Monolith, Lord of the Insect Order. Out on August 23rd, just self-released by the band. Links below to the band, to the pre-order. Check it all out. Have a wee listen. See what you think. Let us know in the comments below. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
So the